Dan Mayo is touring through New York City and stopped by the space because I wanted to ask him questions because I love his playing and he's a great guy. So here's some rapid fire questions for Mr. Dan Mayo.
Yes.
First, I'm going to ask three versions of this question. What have you been working on or thinking about technically in your own drumming? So I'm going to ask you technically, musically,
Mhm.
and with music production. So from a technical perspective,
Mhm.
what types of things are you thinking about or working on when you're drumming right now?
I think it all comes down to sound for me, and I'm trying when it, like I don't differentiate between technique and sound. For me, they are both the same. So in order to uh, to nail a certain technique, in my opinion, you can actually focus on the sound. And if you're gonna nail the sound of it, you're gonna have the technique. I mean, it's impossible to play good sound without a good technique. It goes hand in hand. So for me, I always focus on the sound. It helps me, like when I focus on too much technical uh, aspects of technique, or like how to approach drums, uh, I just get lost and I don't see the cause or the reason for what I do. So for me, I just focus on the how do I create this sound and what it makes me feel.
Now, are you when you talk about thinking about like a certain sound as it's attached to a technique? Are you thinking more about tone, or are you thinking about like a whole like a whole musical sound that you're trying to create on the kit? Like, what would be an
Hmm.
example of like the way that the technical and the musical are connected in this way?
Okay, it's a good question. In a way, I kind of divide. I don't know. Divide is not a good thing to say about this, but more or less, you can say that you have wetter sounds. You have wet sound. You have a dry sound. You have a warm. You have cold sound, which usually, if it's a wet sound, it's going to be cold as well. It's like
Mm.
that's how I see it. So cymbals, for example, usually goes with like reverb sound. It's wet, cold sounds to me, like metallic sound. And drums are more warm sounding uh, drums. Um, and I'm trying to just navigate between those worlds.
Yeah, there's some overlap with long and short tones
Yeah,
there.
exactly. And also, I have that as well. So it's like a long, short, transient. You have like sometimes no transient, a lot of transient. Uh, Space, quiet, for example. It's also certain makes me feel in a certain way. It's like a vacuum. It's like space. Um, so yeah, it's like all of these. I'm trying to create. So I'm trying to create a world that I'm playing into, and also I have control in this world, so I can actually change it if I want. And each element in this world really really have a strong effect of the musical content that I'm trying to create.
How does your technique change or the like feeling in your body of playing, like for example, dry, tight, quick sounds versus long, open, wet sounds?
Mm,
Do you find that your technique actually changes as you move from one to the other?
definitely, definitely. I feel like that's why I always recommend drummers and students that I had before to always practice the drum set, because uh, a drum pad is fine, but the drum set force you to actually develop more technique around the kit. So I'm gonna hit the floor a different way. Not even the floor. Every sound has its own way, technique, its own way that you're gonna hit it. So the more you play on different sounds, the more you develop more techniques to actually use uh, in in drumming situation or live situation or recording situation or whatever. For example, the floor tom here. I mean, this one is tuned very high, so it's not a good example. But this one, uh, is gonna absorb my my hit a lot more. So I'm gonna hit it harder in a way, and it's gonna be a different type of hit instead of these tiny drums here. So it's just I'm not gonna hit it the same way I'm hitting the floor. I'm gonna approach it differently, and I think it creates, like for example, I can do, if I'm gonna hit them both the same. To my opinion, it's just like it's okay, but you can go deeper and maybe try to. So I just approach this snare differently. I like made it like more because it's such a short sound. So I made it more snappy, and I used the rim like a rim shot.
Yeah, and your technique even looks different. Your hand looks different as you play.
Yeah, I didn't notice it, but yeah, yeah, I bet it looks different. And also maybe I'm gonna use it as more of for press rolls, for example, what something I'm not gonna do on the floor tom. So it's kind of those kind of obvious maybe um, stuff I'm gonna implement on the drums just because those sounds ask for different technique.
If you name like three types of grooves, you tend to most naturally gravitate toward.
Yeah.
What are they?
So there are grooves like that, but to be honest, I don't think in groove phrases more as I think in swing or not swing. So for me, like to swing, it's different world with different rules that I can be in, and it's gonna make me feel like it's gonna play. I'm gonna play like different phrases or ideas in that type of world. For example, one of the swings that I like the most is kind of like 50% or in between, which is a. So if I'm gonna play in this type of world now. So for example, what I did now, just I was playing in that world, but I was free to do whatever I want. I don't think about like the groove specifically. I think in phrases more. So just I'm trying to say phrases around the kit just to express myself.
Do you find yourself internally? I'm always interested what one's internal experiences as they're creating when they pay attention to it, and maybe you want to play actually and just sort of pay attention to what types of thoughts you're having. But are you sort of singing a melody is sort of in your head as it's being played out, or are you like what types of thoughts are you having that direct to your playing?
Oh yeah, it's a good question. Both actually. I do have a phrase in my mind which I'm trying to say, but now we're entering a territory of mistakes, which also I like a lot, because there aren't any mistakes. It's all in our head. What a mistake is basically is you trying to play the phrase you had in your head, and something else happened, and then you feel like okay, error is a mistake, but we as human beings we don't have mistakes. That's how I believe. We have only the way to observe and approach stuff that happens. So something different happened. Uh, what I do with it? Is it a good thing? Do I think it's a bad? If it's a mistake, so I immediately my brain is telling me this is a bad thing, but something else happened, which is great. So let's try to incorporate this thing in the playing, so we can decide either to ignore it or to make a thing out of it, or just to make a small thing out of it. So we can try to approach it in bunch of different ways. But my brain is also in the moment processing this whole thing. So almost like a computer when you have the RAM or the or whatever, the RAM memory that it's actually doing all the uh, present working. Like you have a bunch of tabs open, whatever, and you have the SSD. So I feel like the SSD is more like bringing up phrases or musical ideas that you want to play, and then the RAM is just making sure. Okay, now we're gonna react live to what's going on.
Right, it's dealing with what actually happens. So there's
Yeah.
almost, it seems like there's, I feel this way too. Like there's a limit to what I can actually decide. Like I can't decide every note most of the time.
Mhm.
Even when I think I
Yeah.
am deciding every note, there's kind of stuff that just happens,
Mhm.
and it's right or wrong, and then you sort of roll with it in whatever way.
Definitely.
How often do you feel like you're totally sort of like watching the show? Like you're not really consciously making a lot of decisions?
Mm.
Or are you hovering somewhere in the middle? Or are you making a lot of decisions?
I call it the monkey in the brain. I kind of thought about it once. It's like I feel like the monkey is I don't know the monkey. It's just an animal. It's like it's the first instinct you have when you hear something, or even if you hear like a musical idea. Like the monkey is like, yeah, I want to play this, and just like immediately he knows. It knows, sorry, and the brain is overseeing everything. It's like, okay, monkey, you're right. It's a great idea to play this, but let's somehow get to this. Don't just go straight away. Or maybe if the brain sees that the monkey is just too uh, horny for this phrase,
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, go for it. But then we're gonna, if you're gonna start like this, we're gonna go to a different place later, or yeah, which is like it's always like a conversation between.
Oh, so let me make sure I understand because I love this. So like the monkey in the brain's like, here's an idea, go.
Yeah.
And then the thinking part of you that's doing more planning is
Mhm.
like, okay, this is what we got to do a little strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we can't just
Yeah.
like because otherwise you'd sort of be randomly just jumping into like wild
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah.
So you're sort of consciously, uh, uh, you know, planning in the moment or monitoring
Mhm.
is the evolution of the idea, the pacing maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to, especially when I'm soloing, I'm using this a lot to understand where things go, where we are. For example, I used to play a lot of jazz, and especially with jazz musicians, when someone takes a solo, you have to, as a drummer, I feel like my job is not to keep time. My job is to be with the soloist, be with the saxophone player that's playing solo now. I need to be with him and makes him feel that I'm flying with him. No rules. We are just woo. We went super far, but I know how to come back. I'm the grown up. I need to know how to come back and to bring him back to safety. So, but if I'm gonna just be the one that's gonna bring him to safety without flying with him, it's not fun, and it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna fly. So,
That sounds like the monkey in the brain is the one that's like taking off with him flying, just immersing oneself in the music.
yeah,
And that the reflective, thinking adult in the room is the one that knows how to land the plane
yeah, exactly.
at the end of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and also, the brain needs to always oversee what's going on, and for example, when the solo starts, the brain can I can sometimes feel it say, okay, we're gonna come back to the head or whatever, or we're gonna end the solo in this way, and then as the solo progress, it's like, okay, different plan B. It's like a board plan. You just need a new plan to. It's gonna be better. This like it's always working and listening and yeah. But I feel like it's something that is not talent. Something that I developed and like the way I was used to practice. I didn't notice that I'm practicing this, but the way I practiced it was I hated just to play rudiments and work on technical stuff. So my practice routine was to just play a solo 40 minutes, and I was imagining like I have crowd because I'm playing in front of crowd and I cannot stop. So if there's a mistake, I'm not gonna stop and say, I'm gonna work on this lick. No. Which, by the way, I do think it's great to work on. If you don't succeed something, it's okay to stop and don't get me wrong. Just in this type of exercise, which can be even 10 minutes a day, um, no stop. Just it's a show. And then I had few mistakes and I had to work on how do I get out of those mistakes because I'm performing live. And it's important to imagine the audience because otherwise you don't get excited and then you're not committing really to this idea. So all you need to do is just imagine you're live performing in front of people and you have 10 minutes avant-garde solo now. Just like you're a crazy artist. You're gonna express yourself. That's yeah.
In an exercise like that, or when you're playing a solo in front of an actual crowd, how much are you trying to take the audience's perspective or their experience into account? Are you in your head thinking, I want to make this good, digestible, accessible for the audience, or are you playing what you think sounds great and the audience can deal with it, or somewhere in the middle?
I don't think about the audience at all, which is maybe not a good idea. I used to play with a singer named Esther. She's Ethiopian Israel singer, amazing singer, and she was super awesome. And we used to play a lot, and we had a tour in the States, and one of the in the show I had like a solo, but it's not like a jazz concert. It was just songs concert, and I had a solo, which normally this solo should be like 1 minute, but it became like 5 minutes solo, which one of them I actually found a video not long ago. I was just laughing so hard. Actually, I'm tuning the tom for like 5 minutes of this solo. It's like ping pong bang, it's just really avant-garde solo. I didn't think about the crowd at all, which maybe now that I see it, it's too much. But I don't I can't, because I'm dealing with all this monkey brain stuff. It's for me, it's a distraction to actually um think also about how the audience feel.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, in your mind, this might be a both instead of an either or, but are you thinking, is the creative motivation sort of like, what do I need to express right now? Or, like no matter what that is? Or is it, how can I make good music, quote unquote, good music, as your opinion? Are you trying to make good music, or are you trying to like let whatever comes out come out, no matter what it is?
So I think it's also related to the monkey the brain stuff. I also, my job is to make the monkey happy, like the animal enemy. It should be alive. So if I don't have any ideas, like for example, which can happen to anyone, the solo starts from zero. You don't have any idea. How do you start the solo? Like there's no. It's like the monkey or the animal is not reacting to anything. So what's going to happen? So I figured the best way just to throw some random notes sometimes, and then the animal is gonna react. So, like the first gear, for example, for something.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it can be a lot of things. But for example, let's just like now we start from zero, okay, and then I'm gonna just hit few notes, and then I'm gonna see how it's gonna develop. I don't know what's gonna happen. Let's see what's the animal feel. So yeah.
Now, are you able to identify some of the ideas from the monkey there?
Yeah.
Like in your own process, like, because we've described this process of like ideas come.
Yeah.
And then you have to go, okay, strategize, pace it out.
Yeah.
Repeat.
Yeah. Definitely.
What were some musical ideas that struck you during that?
I can tell you everything. So
Tell me.
So I'm going to tell you also what I didn't like, which is maybe a good idea, and then how I approach it. So I was playing like a bunch of notes, and I was almost head to a direction, like the animal wanted to go to the direction which I already played in this video, which is almost went to the same, almost like went there. I felt like it's just coming, and then I felt like no, it's not a good idea. We already played it, so maybe I do think about the audience in a way. I already played it. Um, Keep searching, and then I kept playing free notes, free stuff, and then I came across this something about this barbaric floor tom with this high tuning. Felt like a Moroccan to me. I don't know. And then, okay, you can go there. So I gave the monkey or the animal permission to go there to this thing, and I started to play with this. And then the brain was, hey man, it's gonna be nice actually to keep this idea of Moroccan shit, but maybe with a kick snare hi hat and yeah, it's gonna be maybe interesting. Gonna sound like a broken beats or whatever. And then I went to it, but I didn't like the way I went to it. I felt like I just immediately went over the kick snare and hi hat, and the transition wasn't great. So my brain said, okay, it happened. So let's keep playing. And then I kept going back and forth between the floor and the rims just to make sure it is connected, like what I did on the floor and what I transitioned to with the snare and bass drum stuff. And then I thought maybe what's gonna be a great way to end this solo. So I started to think about this as well. I thought maybe to just one note crash cymbal, but then I remember that my animal doesn't like crash cymbal so much. So, and then I noticed, okay, let's just maybe get smaller and smaller, and then this happened. And during the end of the solo, where I just started to play polyrhythmic stuff, which was all of a sudden the dotted notes became just quarter notes. Um, this was just the monkey playing around. It was fun. It just we went there.
What do you feel like your main, when you're thinking about, so let's say you're struck with an idea, like in this case, the tom sort of Moroccan sounding idea.
Yeah.
What are your main tools for creating more movement out of it? So you're like, you have the idea, and you're like, oh, let's stick with this.
Yeah.
What are the main tools that you use when you stick with something? I would throw like an obvious one in there is repetition.
One of the exercises that I used to do as well, it was to take a tempo. You can do it also without a tempo, just free. But if you have like a certain, like 60 BPM, whatever, just comfortable tempo, and you have the metronome going, and then you're trying just to not repeat yourself. So the opposite of just repetition. And it's also purely for the exercise. I'm not saying you should play like this, but what it does, it makes you find new phrases and also be more playful with what you do, and it makes you, what I found at least, have a infinity waterfall of ideas, in a way. Everything just connects to everything.
What do you do when you're out of ideas? Do you ever run out of ideas?
Of course. That's so usually sometimes you can just stop playing, it's okay. Or you can repeat, it's okay. Just, I ran out of ideas. Okay, let's repeat until I'm gonna have an idea. Or maybe just have a little break and then something else. Or maybe just let's break it completely and just do something completely different, which maybe it's gonna sound bad, but it's gonna refresh the system.
Yeah,
So
I like what you described earlier as like, which is what you're kind of saying now, that like sometimes you just gotta throw some random crap at the drums.
yeah, it's okay.
And like
Yeah.
let that inspire something.
Definitely, yeah.
It
Because
sounds like there's this reciprocal relationship with you where it's like the drums sort of, as you're playing them, give you ideas or inspire.
100%. That's
and then
that's
you
the
sort of
case.
like put it back into the drums. And it's
Yes.
back and forth.
Yes, that's 100% the case. That's how I used to also play. So every time I got bored from the drum kit, which we all do, probably all the drummers do that, but it's not special by any means. But I just let it be. I'm not. I figured it's okay to let it be. So I get bored from the drum set. I feel like I'm repeating my ideas. So fuck it, just like let's tune the heads all the way up. Let's put towels on it. I don't know. Every time something else, to try and explore and find new ideas and to make me inspired. It's okay. We need to be inspired. It's not all like military rules how to play drums. It's art. We have to be inspired. So yeah, definitely. And yeah, for the idea that I was talking about, so it's like it goes like it's twofold basically. So the first thing about it is just you have the tempo, you're running with it, you're playing phrases. I'm gonna give you a small example. For example, it's like if it's a tempo. Now I'm gonna just on that I'm gonna play phrases between the kick snare and hi hat. Maybe I'm gonna repeat some of them, but it's okay. It's not that it's not allowed to repeat. But the goal is to try to repeat as much as less as possible. So that's I'm just playing around with this. What it made me feel basically is okay. Always thinking. The exercise with this is actually always to think ahead, to be always present, listen, and think about what's coming next. And I think it's a great exercise to develop this approach.
How far ahead do you think is the sweet spot to be thinking? Obviously
Uh,
not 20 measures ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah, of
How far
course.
ahead are you sort of
Not a lot
looking?
in a way. Just like I think a quarter note and two quarter notes. It's like it's really not a lot. It's impossible to think too much ahead. I mean, some parts of me think ahead about like if it's solo about how to end the solo, whatever. But in this exercise specifically, I'm not thinking too much ahead because I also have to listen to what's going on, and it makes you think faster about what's the next stuff gonna be, how you're gonna react to stuff, and also the second fault is I noticed when I was practicing a lot that I was repeating a lot of phrases because I was practicing with tom, floor tom. I had like a huge set, and I was always doing the same phrases because I had a bunch of different sounds. So sound, as much as it is a good thing, it can be also a bad thing because you have a bunch of different sounds. You don't have to have different sticking or technique in order to because it's there. You can
Right, you can
play.
play the same rhythm, but
Yeah,
dress it up in all sorts of different ways.
yeah, which is fun, but it's like at the end of the day, how do you progress from there? So I just stopped for 2 years. I remember I just decided to play only kick snare and hi hat, and then I discovered a lot of things through that, like how to find more sounds in the snare drum, how to use the kick drum not as a main downbeat source of sound, but also as a floor tom, just to play with it. Now, I mean, when I was growing up, I'm not that old, but when I was growing up, I didn't see a lot of videos of people doing that. Now you have a lot of videos, just everyone do that, so it's just you see it everywhere. But when I was growing up, I didn't expose to those kind of stuff. So for me, it was a revelation to actually I can do fills with the kick drum. The kick drum doesn't have to be on the one, so it was for me nice to have. Also with Moroccan music, which I used to play a lot. Um, the kick drum is not the one. So, so for example, like a common Moroccan beat, which you have, if that's the pulse. Yeah. One. So it's like it's easy to comprehend, but the point is, um, it made me go deeper and say, okay, maybe I can just play even more with that. So that's what I did in the previous song that I was playing. Basically, if you have one, two, three, and if you take the pulse out, it becomes really high tech shit. It's like and then you think like, okay, this person is playing, but all I did just took the pulse out, and it sounds like a really polyrhythmic thing, but it basically it's actually simple idea.
This makes me want to ask you about two things. One is, well, they're kind of related. One is, as you're talking about reducing the voices on the kit,
Mm-hmm.
what becomes two things become way more important, obviously. One of them, like you already mentioned, is getting more tones out of existing instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is having rhythmic variety,
Mm.
right? So, like
Yeah.
being able to play different melodies just rhythmically.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you put any concerted effort toward that? Or how does one develop, how does one expand their rhythmic vocabulary in that way? Because a lot of people get
Mm.
stuck playing the same rhythms.
Yeah.
And then they're searching for tones, but it's always sort of that same underlying
Mm-hmm.
pattern.
So first of all, I guess it also happens to me. So I mean, it happens to everyone. Once you know more music, so in a way, you can get away with this more because you have more variety of stuff to play. But it happens to everyone. First of all, just to say. Um, but it's a good question. Actually, this is why I always nurture the animal, the monkey, because once I hear a sound that I haven't heard before, the monkey or the animal just starts to react it, and that's how I discover new things. So that's my approach usually, and it can be really to tune the drums super differently, um, do a lot of stuff like that, and also something that also helps, to my opinion, is to have back and forth questions with yourself, so you can have like a melodic idea on the drums and repeat it every 4 or 2 bars or whatever, and in between just to improvise. And then in the magic, I don't know how it happens, but you find new phrases and rhythmic ideas in that because you just everything happens so fast, your body just starts to spit out stuff you don't know even exists. That's how I approach it at least, and also I listen to a lot of music so as well. It's like a try to be exposed to a bunch of different stuff.
What do you think makes a drum solo captivating?
When you are telling a story, not trying to impress, like not forcing an impressive ideas or thing that you think gonna impress on the solo, and that you are really working with the sounds you have and not actually trying to be bumped out about I don't have this, the kick drum, it's not the right sound. So instead of just this is the kick drum sounds, let's just work with it. And yeah, to not definitely not, like I said, to not force uh, an idea or a situation on the solo, and let it be as much as possible, and tell a story. Be dynamic. I mean, not every story starts from zero. Some stories starts with the action, but it's okay. But just make sure it's a story that has like ups and downs, maybe a midsection, maybe a love story. I don't know. There's a bunch of different things. It has to be, yeah, like a story you're telling
It has to be
someone.
moving in some way.
Yeah, yeah,
We can move, like there has to be movement
yeah,
at all.
yeah. Maybe two parts. Like for example, one of the common ideas that usually always works and fun to go to, is to have like two ideas living separately, and then somehow you see the connection between them as you go with the solo. So you do like a song, like you have the verse and you have the chorus and you have C part. And the last chorus is kind of somewhat of a crazy combination of also C part, maybe as all elements comes together. It's just that's why I think a lot of drummers are also good producers, to my opinion at least, because they think in such a way. When they take a solo, when they oversee stuff, when they listen to the band, we have to do a lot of things. So that's my approach. So now I found the world that I want to get into, which is now I'm repeating a mistake that I did because my stick got stuck in the floor tom. So I had like a different phrase. I wanted to do it like this. It didn't happen. what happened was that my stick got stuck in the floor tom. So the phrase got cut in half. So now I repeated it again, but cut in half. So now I'm starting basically to have a conversation between dynamics. I felt like, okay, I played this notes, tack, 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 tack. It was super hard. Like the statement was really there. I felt like, okay, what's the next move gonna be if with such a big statement? So maybe there's just a lower statement. So that's why I went to like that. Now conversation between this and the other ideas or the other drums, and now they are starting to be influenced by this big statement. So now basically I moved on to like a different section where the two ideas stopped fighting, and it's just it's not a solution. It's not they didn't stop fight because they are okay. They stopped fighting because they are still mad, but they went away. So now it's just a quiet tension that exists in the moment. That's how I decided to do the solo. So what in the tension area, it got bad because you can't live with this tension, and then they decided not to live in peace anymore. Just it ended with a complete disaster. Yeah, in a way. Yeah. So that's the story. Basically, more or less, that's how I felt when I was playing the solo. It was hard to going back and forth, but yeah.
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 It's really great. I love. It is captivating. It's the right word. It captures your attention all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things you do like really artfully is move between moments of like obvious repetition, like when you're locked into that floor tom, you're just like bang, 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 playing like a dotted something.
Yeah.
And then the opposite of that being like a flow of melody that is like obviously not repeating and not intended to. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas like says the listener, you're like, oh, is this like the car chase part or something? It's like every moment is new.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when you're locked into like the da boom ba, like sort of a triangular motion over here, even though the rhythm was changing, like the fact that it was so recognizable, the pattern, was like as a listener you get like, oh, we're like in a moment now, like the time has like stopped. We're zoomed in on this internal thought or something. Yeah. It's really cool.
Nice, thanks man. Yeah, just like I'm trying to tell a story. Also with my band, with Tatran, we're trying to do the same when we compose songs. It's like, what's the story of the song and what I can do to serve this story in the best way, and not how I can actually crush it, like how I can crush the song. I don't care about this like that type of stuff. So even with this solo, I've been trying to tell this like this is a story. That's what it is.
Does anything change about how it feels to play a solo for you when you are playing a groove-based solo versus one that's more on the toms and fluid like that?
I was keeping time like with the hi hat all the time now because I wanted my ideas to be clear to the subscribers. Oh, watch this or whatever. uh, because sometimes when you show uh, examples of ideas or whatever, it's hard to know without the pulse where it lives and what's going on. But yeah, I totally think about that. And also, usually when I'm really taking like a real solo, I'm not even like even the fact to keep time or not keeping time is part of the musical idea. Like I never just hold a pulse or whatever or just playing beat just because it's always it's a statement. So the solo that I played before, while I was playing it, I felt like should I just keep it all the way like the hi hat or not? Because I felt like my initial thought was not to play it all the time, but yeah, I did it in, just for the video. But definitely, it's something to consider. Like just to play a beat is very strong. To play something is like okay, this is the pulse now. Now the story has like a commitment to it. Like when you're playing free, the commitment is much less. You have less commitment to the situation. The commitment is more based on sounds and phrases, but also there are techniques to get out of it. Um, so you can, if you started to play time and you don't like it, so you can have a motif in the solo where you now rushing the whole tempo and then taking backwards and then rushing again. And now the for the audience who see the solo or maybe for the story of the solo, it's now they know okay. Now it's that's the thing. We're not gonna live in this tempo anymore. We are in a journey where it's always rushing or dragging, whatever.
Do
But
you
it's
actively avoid settling into a beat when you're playing a solo because it's such a strong and common commitment?
yeah, I don't avoid it more as I just being careful. Like in the first solo that I did here, I told you that I wanted to go like the Moroccan solo that I did before. So I almost went to the funky, stinky swing thing, but it's such a commitment. I felt like, wait a second, I'm not 100% sure we want to go there. Once I go there, there's no going back. Or there's going back, but it's going to be more difficult to go back from this. So think about it a bit more. That's why I kept playing free phrases.
That's a
So
perfect example of the monkey
yeah,
and the human. Here's an idea.
yeah,
Hold on.
yeah.
We gotta think about this
Yeah,
before we
it's a
commit.
huge commitment. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I know that's what you want to do, but maybe, yeah, because the monkey really doesn't know. The monkey doesn't see any future. He knows only what's fun now, like really now in this second.
Yeah.
And
It's like a 2-year-old being like, "This would be fun.
yeah,
That
and
would be fun. Let's do it."
exactly, that's exactly for those who haven't, they don't have kids, so maybe they don't get it. But for those who have, it's definitely so. One of the biggest lessons as a father was where there's just like you want to go to let your kid do whatever he wants. It's like yeah, sure, but then sometimes their idea is good for 5 minutes and then they have like a meltdown, and you as adult know that, and you just need to find a nice way to navigate the the day in order to have the also the kid having fun, but not having a meltdown in 5 minutes. So maybe in an hour it's okay to have a meltdown, but not in 5 minutes. So yeah, same with the solo. I felt like if I'm gonna go to the stinking funk thing, just it's gonna be fun for maybe 5 seconds, but that's it. So
Hmm.
I needed something to last longer.
Is there any overlap between drumming and music and your spiritual life?
Mm. Yes, a lot actually. So for me, playing drums, especially shows, the best moments are when I have the monkey in the brain. They are, but I even one step above this, and I don't even think about. There are 1 unit, and I'm not even there. To the point that I don't know what I played even. I have this a lot with my band, Tatran, where we play. Like we started composing songs, really tight songs, and then I had like a drum solo in one of the songs called Sol de Blue. You can find it if you want. And it was just a riff that I'm playing solo on. In one of the shows, they started just to play, not the riff, just to play with me. And then it became just a jam session, this part. And it became psychedelic stuff. And every show, not every show, sometimes it's not good, but a lot of shows, So Solid Blue, we have like also live version from a live show album. It calls named Solid Blue. Soul Ghost. In this album, you can find the live version, which the solo, the jam session is nuts to my opinion. And I clearly remember how I didn't remember anything about the solo. Just I was listening, like, this is what we played, and I'm sure it happens to you a lot as well. It's like those moments where you're so in the moment, you're just so in the moment. So for me, that's the the trance I'm trying to get in. I'm searching for. That's the reward in every show, to be able to dive deep, so deeply. So that's and to be honest, I see how when I get older, sorry, I can see how it's getting more difficult to get into those places because you have more things to worry about, and it's hard just to really let go. When you're young, it's easier. So that's my my goal and the stuff that I chase for is to be able to really be in the moment and to not think about something else that happens beside this world now.
Why does that feel so good when that you get kind of taken over by the music? Do you think?
Um,
What's special about it?
it feels um, first of all healthy. When I'm saying healthy, I'm gonna say a funny story. I had like a really bad inflammation in my hand. Um, it was many years ago, and then I had like the next day I had like a crazy day with Tatran. We had like we just started and we had like a recording session, film record session whole day, and then sound check and then a show, just whole day playing, and it's not an easy show to play. I was like, how the fuck I'm gonna do this show or this whole day? I'm gonna get through this day with this inflammation, and then I didn't think about it too much, and I just started. And the next morning, I managed to actually go through this whole day, and the show was great. I remember that it was just I was in the moment completely. Then because it was the only way for me to actually uh, not think about the pain. And the next day, I woke up with nothing, just no pain. The inflammation went away in one day, and I had this inflammation for months in back then. And then I realized it's like therapy is when you have like a how do you say that when you have like an injury and then
Yeah.
you go to someone that helps you. Yeah, so it's with movement. So movement is healing. So when you move right, it can heal you. When you move wrong from the wrong place and you are just not in the right place, it can hurt you. We are basically drummers. We are playing with fire. So either we are behind the fire or we are by mistake getting burned. So it's important to be behind and relax behind the fire. So I feel like this is the best feeling ever. Just like where this is super zen, and I feel like I'm in my highest form when it's like this, in stupid way. Yeah.